Now, from CBS 4 News, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Good morning, I'm Jim DeFede, and welcome to Facing South Florida. The race for governor continues to morph and change. Billionaire Jeff Green has filed his paperwork to run as a Democrat. Not sure where that is going. Meanwhile, former Congressman Patrick Murphy announced this week that he would not run for governor. Instead, he endorsed Gwen Graham, an endorsement Graham was happy to pick up.
I believe this is the beginning of the Democrats coming together. There is a recognition that this election we've all got to be supportive of one another so that when November 6th comes around, we're celebrating a victory for the state of Florida and a victory for the people of Florida.
Joining me this morning to discuss his decision is Patrick Murphy. Congressman, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So, welcome back to the show. So, let's take a step back before we talk about your endorsement of Gwen Graham. You considered and gave serious thought to the idea of running for governor. What made you do that, and what were the issues that were driving you in that decision?
Well, it really started probably about a year ago. After working with David Jolly in Congress on quite a few issues, we did a joint interview after we both lost our last election, and we're talking about what is wrong with Washington, D.C. And sort of off the cuff, we gave this description of, to me, the 7 problems facing us that have led to this division: the money, the gerrymandering, the polarized media, the lack of relationships, all these issues. He gave his issues, and it kind of caught on. So we've been to, I think, 10, 15 different events now talking about what's wrong with politics. How do we get to this place? And over the last several months, quite a few people started reaching out to us saying, hey, guys, this is the answer. You're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're getting along, you agree on more than you disagree on. Man, this is what's missing, is this middle lane in politics right now. Why don't you all consider running? And we kind of laughed it off in the beginning and then started really thinking about it. And it was never, of course, personal to any of the candidates in the race. It was always about, quite frankly, doing something bigger than either one of us and saying, let's fix this broken system. No one is getting along right now, and it's getting worse and worse. So we gave it some real thought. You
did some polling. I know there was some polling, and the numbers, from what I understand, what I've heard, there was a path. There was a path there. So people wanted the idea of a bipartisan nature of rule in Tallahassee. So why not go forward with it?
You're right. I mean, the polling was there. We had good financial commitments. We had all sorts of volunteers, and we had all sorts of people reaching out with the support. But ultimately, to do something like this, it's got to be deep inside. And I started almost in a position of people trying to convince me to do this. And it was tough for me to kind of get over that hump to say, this is what I really want deep inside, because I know how nasty, these things can get. And I decided after, probably a month of really thinking about it, that it wasn't the right time. Combination of factors kind of led to that decision, but just didn't have that inside feeling. And I think Gwen Graham's going to be a great candidate, and beyond that, a great governor. I think she's got a proven track record of getting things done, of being a leader, solving problems. We agree on a lot more issues than we disagree on, and she's obviously got the family history.
I just want to stick with the idea of combining with Jolly and whether or not you could have made it through a primary. I know the polling that you did looked good, but people were telling me, critics of the idea of you guys pairing together, was that once people started running ads against you that would say your first decision as a Democratic candidate for governor was to pick a pro-life Republican and drive home that part of it, that would have scuttled it in a large way. Does the fact that we end up using labels like he's a pro-life Republican, you're a anti, whatever the numbers, whatever the labels are, is that part of the problem that you see?
Absolutely, and that's why doing something like this is so difficult, especially doing it so late in the game, because you're going to need the resources ultimately to get your message out and make sure people understand what you really believe in. David Jolly says he's a conservative, but this day and age, he's somebody that I think most Democrats would appreciate. He's someone that really wants to do something with weapons in our streets. He wants to rein in the violence. He wants to make sure that Medicaid is out there for everybody. He believes in climate change. I mean, there's a lot of things that we actually agree on. And the thought was, there are some things we disagree on. We understand that. But if we can find some common ground on some major issues, then we might actually find some legislation that lasts. Because what you see happening is, President Obama gets Obamacare done and passed. The next administration comes in and throws it out. Whatever President Trump does now, the next Democratic administration is going to throw that out. Let's get some lasting legislation. We thought this would be the way to do it.
Some of the polling that has come out, some of the independent polling, has former Miami Beach Mayor Philip Levine well ahead at this point in the race. He spent a lot of money. Gwen Graham is considerably far behind him at this point in second place. Andrew Gillum, Chris King, Jeff Green, they're much further down on the list. Why isn't Gwen Graham, with her background, which is similar to yours, with her family history, why do you think she's not catching on more?
Well, let me just say, I don't think anybody's truly caught on. In large part, I don't blame the candidates because of Donald Trump. Right? The man in the White House is continuing to get pressed day after day because of all the controversy. So Philip Levine's name ID has gotten higher because of the money he's spent. I wouldn't say he's catching fire, but I believe Gwen Graham has the resources. I know she's just starting to do her advertising, and there will be some differences in the two, candidates and the others as they start to spend money. That voters are just now starting to wake up. We've seen poll after poll, I think, showing about 50% of voters are undecided. They don't even know who's running right now. They're just starting to pay attention.
Well,
so,
what do you see as the sharp differences between Gwen and Philip Levine? What made you decide to support Gwen as opposed to staying neutral or backing Levine?
The Grahams have been family friends for decades. That matters. I got to serve in Congress with Gwen Graham, and we got to work on legislation together. I've seen her reach across the aisle and solve problems and stick to her guns and what she believes in. Right? She represented a very difficult district in the Panhandle and grew up understanding, I think, the value of public service. That means a lot to me. I believe she's a good person. That also matters to me. And I think when you get down to the issues with the 5 candidates in this race right now, I think they are going to agree on a lot more than they disagree on. It's how they actually solve that problem and get across the finish line that's going to matter, and I think she's best suited to do that.
I'm going to keep trying to draw you into saying something about Levine as to what it is that doesn't attract you to him.
Look, I've gotten to know most of the candidates in the race, and Mayor Gillum, for example, was one of the first mayors to endorse me in my Senate race. Philip Levine, I got to know in Miami, and Chris King, I don't know if I've actually ever met him, but I hear really good things about him. So there was nothing personal in that decision. It was my friendship with Gwen, my loyalty. Her dad was out there on primary day and on election day campaigning, holding up signs with me. Right? I mean, he took the time. They were there for me, and consider him a mentor.
Do you think Gwen Graham is a better general election candidate than Levine?
I do. I do. I think she would do a great job as governor. Ultimately, to me, that's what matters. But you got to win it first. And I think she would be the better candidate.
Do you think Levine would have a much harder time? Can you tell me why you think Levine would have a harder time?
Just traveling the state. I've been doing this series of town halls I mentioned earlier with David Jolly. Not thinking about running at all, just talking politics with people and what's wrong. And unsolicited, the reaction I get about the 4, now 5 candidates, Gwen seems to resonate more, at least in conversation. I know she hasn't, broken through entirely, but in conversation, a lot of people are attracted to her type of politics, especially when you get north of the Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach area.
Yet the key to winning a primary is south of that area. It's Dade, Broward, Palm Beach counties. That's the Democratic stronghold, and that's where Philip Levine seems to be doing really well, and where Gwen Graham is somewhat behind, in part because maybe she's perceived as being a little bit too moderate or too conservative among Democrats.
I think that's some of it, but I'll tell you, just in the last month after considering running for governor myself, so much of this has to do with name ID. People just aren't studying this like you and I might be. And I think when she gets her message out, when they start to hear about her, who she is, that she is actually a candidate, I think her poll numbers and all this is going to change dramatically. But I don't trust polls anymore anyway. So
what's your take? What's your take on how Congress is dealing with things these days? You left a couple of years ago, but you're watching it, I'm sure. So what's going on in Congress from your perspective?
It's heartbreaking. The Congress for years now, decades, has continued to give more and more authority over to the administration. And my friends on the other side of the aisle, I don't want to bash them, but they tell me off the record how much they hate this president. They tell me how disappointed they are in what's happening with trade, what's happening with so many issues, immigration, et cetera. yet they go on TV and, you know, don't say a word. That to me isn't leadership. I wish they would stand up and do what they believe. Integrity matters. Getting things done matters. And it's frustrating to watch so many people not have that courage to stand up for what they believe in.
Where do you think that comes from? Where's that fear? Why are they afraid?
There's this funny saying in Congress that your #1 job is to get reelected. So people are able to justify, hey, I'd like to stand up against them, but if I do, I might get primaried, I might lose, and then I couldn't be in this position. So people have these funny way of justifying a political system instead of what they really believe.
Patrick Murphy, thank you very much for coming in. Yeah. Yes or no question, you're going to run for office again someday?
I'd be surprised if I didn't, but I have no idea what it's going to be.
All right. Thank you very much for coming in. All right, up next, we continue to talk politics with the prolific Mark Caputo from Politico.